Hello, this is Nancy Juetten. I am the founder of the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook group and the leader of the Learn More to Earn More YouTube channel. And today I am very excited to bring to you an amazing expert who has specific, terrific expertise in an area where we all want to learn more and earn more. And it's all about podcast guesting. And so in a moment, I will introduce our lovely guest to you. But in the meantime, I wanted to mention that if you are not yet a member of the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook group, I invite you to find us on Facebook and run and not walk to join us, because this is a community of 1,585 speakers, experts, and authors who are up to big things. They want to raise their voice, make their impact, and make money every step of the way. And if those outcomes are the outcomes that you desire, we can't wait to welcome you. And speaking of welcoming folks, today we have Margy Feldhuhn as our guest. Margy Feldhuhn. And oh my gosh, let me tell you about Margy. She's the co-owner of Interview Connections, the first and leading podcast booking agency. Margy and her business partner lead an in-house staff of over 20 full-time employees from their virtual Rhode Island office. And they have successfully scaled the agency to multiple 7 figures. Their team of in-house booking agents are the podcast powerhouses behind many successful entrepreneurs and businesses, including Ali Brown, A. Weber, USA Financial, and more. Margy joined Interview Connections in 2016 as a contractor, becoming the first employee in 2017 and acquiring 50% equity in the business by 2018. By 2019, she helped lead the business to its first 7-figure year without any direct marketing or advertising. When she's not busy guesting on podcasts and recording her own show, Rock the Podcast, Margy is active in animal rescue, organizing a yearly fundraiser called Art for Animals. In 2019, she was recognized for her efforts with the Humane Heroes Award. She is owned by her 17-year-old cat and 9-year-old toothless Yorkie Poo. Welcome, Margy, to Learn More to Earn More with Nancy Juetten.
Thank you so much for having me, Nancy.
I am thrilled to have you with us today because I have been voyeuring into your Facebook group and watching your powerful sharing of content and training and what is the name of your Facebook group?
The Guest Expert Profit Lab.
Guest Expert Profit Lab, people. Run, don't walk, and go there too, because my, oh my, the value is poured every single day, and the level of personal attention that you receive as you take in that content is beyond compare. I have been voyeuring in there myself and learning so much. So what amazing success you and your business partner have achieved in a very short period of time. What has that been like for you?
Thank you so much for your kind words. Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and really it's kind of like meta, because the strategy that we use to grow the business, especially when we were growing organically with no paid ads, was also the service that we provide entrepreneurs. Because by guesting on podcasts, that is how we, got so many new leads, grew the business, networked so much. So it's been an incredible ride. My favorite thing, I'm really big on setting really high goals. That's what I do in the business. I cast a vision for this crazy goal, and everyone's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Let's do it." And it's not just about hitting 7 figures, hitting 10 million. It's not just about those numbers or that amount of money. It really is who you become at each new level that I find so rewarding, because I'm obsessed with personal development. So it's been incredible. And when you're moving so fast and growing so fast, and having a fast growing business is an amazing way to do that. It's incredible to look back even a week ago and be like, I'm a different person this week than I was last week, because I'm growing and transforming so fast. So I love it.
Well, congratulations. It's a very remarkable accomplishment in any economy. But right now, as we speak in December of 2020, there's this global pandemic that's still got its grip on so many lives and businesses across the world. And I'm curious, what, if any, impact has that incident had on the value and the desire that people have to step up to the podcast microphone?
That's a great question. It's been a great year for us. In some ways, we're very lucky because the nature of our business is so virtual. It's also been incredible because, we've been talking for almost 8 years about the value of virtual speaking opportunities and the value of virtual networking that you get by being a guest on podcasts. And we did have to do a lot of educating the market on like why they should care, because they're like, well, why do I need virtual opportunities? And that is one thing that's really changed this year is we no longer have to explain to entrepreneurs why they need consistent virtual speaking and networking because of COVID. Everybody now needs it and knows they want it. So it's been positive. I mean, we've more than doubled what we did in revenue last year. So it's been an incredible year. It also really helped that we had, you see like the tip of the iceberg, right? But underneath the water is years and years of, refining our client experience to make it the absolute best, training and developing a team of employees and leaders. And all of that stuff helped us too, because, anyone who leads an organization of employees, change management is serious. I mean, like managing people who are going through the stress and honestly trauma of what this year has been, and having the team still move forward and grow and serve their clients. We're very lucky that we have an incredible team and that we've spent years developing our team and developing our leaders so that they were really ready to shine when all this happened.
Well, bravo and kudos to you and your entire team. I think I recall listening to Jessica in an interview recently where she was the person who started the company, and one day she woke up and said, I don't want to just have a bunch of contractors or W-9 people working on the company. I want to have people that are committed fully and are all in with our mission. You were there from the very beginning. What kind of cultural shift did you effect when that decision became your new direction?
Yes. So that had to do with the level of service we wanted to provide, but also labor laws. And a lot of entrepreneurs are like taking some risks, I'll say, in what they're having contractors do that really those should be employees. If you're training them, if you're telling them when to work, they should be employees, not contractors. So, and I mean, my expertise is not HR, but yeah, it was a combination of really needing to grow to the next level and be, the most high touch service out there and needing employees to really guarantee that level. And also, the importance of being compliant and not wanting to scale a business on a labor model that could get you in trouble. So it was a very interesting experience because I started out as a contractor, as a booking agent in 2016, and then becoming the first employee in 2017. At the beginning of 2017, when I became the first employee, the idea was that like I would just basically be managing contractors. And then we were like, oh, you can't manage contractors. If you're managing them, they're employees. So we did this whole changeover, and Jess was a lot more into this than I was. Like, I was the first employee. I was down for anything, but I love working from home. I love virtual work. I love to travel, not right now, obviously. So the idea of working from anywhere has always been my dream. So Jess had this vision of like a traditional office and everyone is in the office. And that wasn't really my vision, but I was excited about it. And it is cool because we're based in Rhode Island and there's not a lot of stuff like this going on in Rhode Island. So people are always surprised that that's where we come out of and that our whole team is there. So it's a learning curve. Like, it's a sharp learning curve when you first change over from a contractor model or a solopreneur model to having in-house employees. It took us a while to figure out company culture, like who was even a fit with hiring and onboarding. And then even if you have people who are a fit, how do you train them? How do you balance accountability and checking in with not micromanaging? How do you navigate even just like, benefits and health insurance and having a competitive package to offer talent coming in? I mean, it was a steep learning curve and it was a lot of effort, but now I'm glad that we started that in 2017 because now, almost 2021, having 23 full-time employees, a number of them in leadership, it was a lot harder, and then it gets a lot easier because once people are trained up and leading, it takes so much off your plate, and it is much more fun than going it alone.
Well, I love what you've just described, what a powerful transformation. And it makes me want to know, since you're such a advocate and a champion of personal development, have you and Jess come up with a really big vision about what you're intending to build and how it's intending to grow as you step up in your leadership in the podcast guesting industry?
That's such a good question. We were just doing a thing on watching a video and doing a workshop on company vision. And we just had a great leadership development with Kelly Roach with our leaders in Interview Connections and talking a lot about vision. And that at this point is really something we're co-creating with our team and with our leaders, because there's Jess and I's personal goals for the impact that we want to have on the world through the business. But now that the business is so much bigger than us, that is something that's honestly constantly getting worked and reworked, because, this time last year when we were just hitting 1 million, it was so different than this year. And now the vision in terms of revenue is we're going for $10 million in 2021, which based on what we have in place, I think is going to happen. It's a pretty reasonable goal, which is exciting. But the vision of who are we in the world and the impact that we're having, we're so passionate about helping entrepreneurs grow their business through visibility. And the thing I love about visibility and being a guest on podcasts is the personal growth aspect, because a lot of people who have hit a ceiling in their business growth, there is some mindset issue, some fear of putting yourself out there. And podcast guesting is so powerful. Speaking to entrepreneurs who host podcasts, getting out there consistently, like 4 times a month or more every single month on a different show in front of a new audience, it changes you. It totally transforms you. And we know that our business grows at the rate at which we grow. So as we're growing, as we're sharing and telling our story and connecting with new people and really transforming, then our business that might have been stuck before is now starting to grow and transform too.
I love that. It's so beautiful. It's like you're reaching, and then the steps are appearing as you serve it at an even higher level. And I think that's beautiful. So clearly COVID-19 has made virtual speaking a priority for speakers, experts, and authors. Of course, podcasting, I always say, is one leg of a three-legged stool, whereas we can speak to our own community that's already following us. We can earn invitations to speak to other people's audiences, and we can seek out opportunities to share our message with the 1 million or more podcast hosts that are looking for guests just like us. So my question to you is, what do you think entrepreneurs should be doing to leverage podcast interviews to grow their businesses in the best and the worst of times?
Yeah, so the biggest mistake, we just did a training actually on the 5 biggest mistakes we see entrepreneurs making, but I would say the most common one is that entrepreneurs aren't committed enough to the strategy, because it takes time. Like any content marketing strategy, you have to show up consistently for a while before the floodgates kind of open. And then suddenly you're getting all these leads who are like, I heard you on this show. I heard you on this show. But it can feel like crickets in the very beginning, because you're just like staying consistent, and it can almost feel like you're like screaming into the void. Obviously you're talking to a host, so that's nice, and leveraging hopefully that relationship and opportunity. But it takes discipline and that's true of anything. If you're doing consistent videos, anyone who's had huge success doing videos knows that it's a lot of showing up consistently again and again and again, and then you get that traction. So the biggest thing I would say is really go all in on the strategy and treat it as something that's just built into your business. Like every week I go on a podcast. That's just part of what my week looks like. I go on sometimes 2 or 3 podcasts every single week. It's just built in. It's not something that I'm like, should I do this? Should I not do this? And strategy is really important, and we train and we teach a lot of strategy for monetization. But the biggest thing is consistency, because even with all the strategy, you do have to get on the court And then once you're there, then you can do some pivoting based on your results and based on, you know, how things feel and which audiences and hosts you're really connecting with.
I love this word discipline. And it also made me think about a couple of other D words that have come up in conversations I've had with folks in my world. There are some doubters, there are some dabblers, there are people that doubt the strategy, and then there are the doers who are delivering the wow and welcoming the outcomes that can be so welcome. So what would you say to a skeptic or a doubter about the absence of discipline or dabbling or discounting a strategy, whether it's podcast guesting or anything else? What would you say based on the many successful experiences that your own clients are welcoming every single day?
I mean, I never try and convince anyone of anything. Like if someone is just like, nope, I doubt it. Like I can't do it. I don't want to do it. Like, okay. Like I'd be interested to see how that goes for them in terms of their business growth with that attitude. I think it's healthy to be skeptical and to use critical thinking and to ask questions and to seek out resources to make sure that a strategy is a good use of your time. So in that way, being a skeptic isn't a bad thing. It's also really important that you know who you're getting information from. And I really feel passionate about that because I like people's confidence. Like I know that like fake it till you make it, but I also think it's really important that people who are sharing expertise with other people are qualified and have the experience to back up that expertise, because it makes me nervous when entrepreneurs are wasting money and wasting time on information from someone who like is totally well-meaning and I'm sure like a great person and good in many areas, but just doesn't have actual experience doing what they're teaching. So if you're a skeptic, I think that's probably a good thing. But there is an aspect of you can only think about it for so long and then you have to take action. And anyone who has a business listening to this knows this, because your business was not built on an idea. It was built on your action. A lot of people probably had the same idea and they don't have a business right now because they didn't take action the way that you did.
Right. So I'm reminded of something. I can't remember who said it first, but the quote was, his name was Lou Tice, and he said, take care who you give sanction to. If you're looking for business advice, go to a proven business success story to get advice there. If you need to bake a cake, you can borrow sugar from your neighbor over the backyard fence. But if you need business advice, go to someone who knows and has the track record to back it up before you make a decision. So there you have that. So what are the types of businesses that can benefit from a guest expert strategy?
Yeah, so we primarily work with service-based entrepreneurs who can work with people virtually. If you fit into that category, it's really like easy money. Like it's very low hanging fruit for you to see an ROI from podcast guesting, because like say you work with clients annually and your lowest price point is $5,000 a year. If each client annually is worth $5,000 to you, then you're going to get enough clients to pay for your time and whatever you've invested in it. Like, so that's just, I like to break down the math. It's like, what are your current prices? How many clients would you need to justify this and see an ROI? And if it's like, well, my prices are too low, then maybe you should raise your prices. And that's something we do help our clients with as well, because we found that it's not enough to just give someone a podcast interview. They also need help with the strategy on the back end and how to leverage it and how to monetize it. And we also do, since we have grown a multi-7-figure company, we also help our clients on the back end with whatever's going on in their business that might be kind of stalling their success.
So one of the things I talk to my clients about when they're podcast guesting is that it's really important to ping pong those listeners back into their world with some kind of a powerful call to action that actually is a demonstration that there was someone listening to that show that wanted to rush and beat a path to your door. So when you're guiding your clients to create their powerful call to action that creates that ping pong effect, what are some of your favorite suggestions to offer to help people get that aha and that win that they can measure and treasure?
Yes. I love a good call to action because you can be doing a lot of things right. And if you don't have a good call to action, you're like, I don't know, it doesn't work. And it's like those listeners were there, they liked you, but you didn't send them somewhere. So yes, you want something that's really concise. And that's the biggest thing. People, I think, get a little like they have so many platforms that they don't know where to send people. So they send them to all of them. They're like, here's my LinkedIn, here's my website. And they are just going to blank out because no one can remember that. You need to give them just one step to take to get into your world and go to the next step with you. And it should be simple, easy to remember, easy to spell, and it should be valuable. So I think there's different calls to action that are better for different businesses and different target audiences. It can be as simple as scheduling a consult call with you. Again, if you want to position the value of that. So if you use something as simple as scheduling a call, you want to make sure you position the value of the call. Now, I don't generally use that because I don't want my team getting on the phone with like random leads because, you know, a lot of people are just not at the place where they're ready for us in their business. And I don't want the sales team to be on the phone with unqualified leads. So we use our Facebook group. And I know you have a great Facebook group too. So we send all of our leads who hear us on podcasts to join our Facebook group at interviewconnections.com/group. We have a nice, easy redirect that they can remember. And then that is where we do our free trainings. We're coaching. Jess and I are in there all the time. So it's a great place to take the next step with those listeners and have them get to know us more.
I love that. And can you say that Facebook group again so everybody can remember it?
Yep. It's interviewconnections.com/group.
Very good. Since you brought up the group, let's talk about the group. You know, the founders of Facebook have been saying that community is everything in this world that we stand in. And there are people left and right starting Facebook groups. And I've seen the best and I've seen the rest. And I would like to know given the extensive training in personal development work that you have done, what do you think makes for a great Facebook group that actually sets the foundation for you to actually have a quality, profitable, potential audience of real clients to emerge from there to do business with you?
So the first thing is being specific about who's in the group. So having member questions is a really easy way to do this because it's really important, like for us, that anyone joining our group is an entrepreneur with an established business. You know, sometimes people are interested in the group, but they don't have a business. So by using the member questions, our team can look at people's answers and determine if they're a good fit for the community. So we curate it that way so that it's a really high value community full of entrepreneurs, which is great because other entrepreneurs want to be in there and network with them. The other thing is consistency. Like you have to have a consistent plan. You can't just like pop in and post when you think about it. If you're gonna have a Facebook community, you gotta have a plan. And for us, that was about investing resources in it. So we have team. We have concierges, new media strategists who are in the Facebook group all day. They are full-time employees who are just there to support people in the Facebook group. They're messaging, they're answering questions, they're tagging people in helpful resources. So for us, having those people, having someone who reviews and approves the people who request to join the group to make sure that they're the right fit, and then scheduling our content so that we're in there consistently multiple times per week, sharing value. Those are the things that have really like blown up our group. And then also sending new people to the group. So obviously using the podcast guesting strategy to grow the group and also Facebook ads.
Well, very, very good. I love all those suggestions. And my group has been growing rapidly since I made a double down commitment to go all in with it last July. And it's been so rewarding to see it grow organically. And yet I also think about techniques like Facebook advertising. And so since you brought up Facebook advertising, there are some people that would say, yeah, it's so time consuming for me to be on podcasts, for me to prepare to be on them, for me to be actually speaking up on them, and then for me to be leveraging the replay afterwards to make sure it gets socially shared. That's so much work. Wouldn't it be so much easier to get a Facebook ad funnel squared away so that it's a set and forget it? I've heard people say this time and time again. So what I'm curious about, really specific question, is how do Facebook leads from advertising compare to the kind of lead quality that emerges during a podcast interview where there's real intimacy between the parties and real conversations and real personality being shared? What are your thoughts about the comparison between those two kinds of leads?
That's a great question. So I love Facebook ads too. So I like answering this question because I'm not coming at it from the perspective of like only our strategy, like don't use anything else in your business. Like, no, you should use multiple strategies consistently in your business if you're serious about growing. I will say that paid advertising, I think people prioritize it too early in their business and they're kind of throwing away money. So we grew from zero. Yeah. We grew from 0 to 7 figures with no paid ads at all. Like it was all organic. It was using podcast interviews. And that was the way to do it. Once we got to that point, now we've added in paid Facebook ads and Google ads to increase our results even more as we're at that multi-7-figure level. But they don't replace each other. Like the ads, it's not like I stopped being a guest on podcasts when we started using ads. Now I'm doing both. If you have to pick one, I would pick the podcasts. But really, as you get bigger, you want to be doing both. They're very different leads though that you're going to get. Like we all see so many Facebook ads. Like it's not, when a lead comes in, even if they will click on your thing and opt into your ad, they're a cold lead. Like they do not know you. They do not trust you. They don't know what makes you different from anyone else who does what you do. It's just a much longer process to nurture them in the group. And they're always going to convert at a lower percentage. Like you're always going to need more of those leads from Facebook ads because they're always going to convert lower. They're so cold. Then you have podcast interviews. Now, this is a long form conversation where it's not an infomercial. You're sharing your story, you're sharing your why, you're sharing who you are and what you're passionate about, in addition to sharing what your business does and, you know, how you help people. So a lead that hears you on a podcast interview and resonates with you as a person and your story and what you solve is their pain point, that is going to be an easy lead to close. And that's going to be someone who's a dream client. Because once they even get through the sales process, it's so important to work with people that you resonate with and that you're aligned with. And people who hear you that way on a podcast are going to know you and trust you so much.
I love that answer. And then it also leads me to ask you an important question. You've already mentioned that service-based entrepreneurs are your best clients and that they need to be established businesses. And I'm sure many of my listeners are wondering, oh my goodness, I wonder if I'm a candidate to be a client at Interview Connections. So what is your ideal client? How do they show up? How do they know whether or not they even qualify to be considered for a done for you podcast interview booking with your agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we work with established entrepreneurs. We do not have a requirement for revenue, but the requirement is that you're an established business. You know who your ideal client is. You are successfully selling something to them, and that you're really an expert, because you need to have some type of expertise to be a guest on podcasts. So like, if you are a business coach who's never had a business and has no experience with businesses, it wouldn't be a good fit because we can't position you as an expert in something that you're not an expert in. But you could have a newer business. Like, for example, if you're someone who came out of corporate and then started their own business, you're an expert in what you're coaching at because you became an expert in corporate. So even if you have a newer business, you're a true expert. So you would be a good fit. So it's really case by case. But like we said, we started doing Jess's first interview. She was like months into Interview Connections. It was a brand new business. So really, podcast interviews will serve you from the very beginning through multi 7 figures, 8 figures, and beyond.
So let me ask you another question. And this is some, you know how I was talking about the skeptics and the doubters. From time to time, I'll be on Facebook and I will see a post from someone saying, oh, the spray and pray pitches have been arriving and I've been deleting them left and right. The spray and pray pitches to get on my show have been arriving left and right, and my delete key is getting lots of exercise. What philosophically do you embrace with your own booking agents to ensure that pitching is not spray and pray and absence of quality, I guess is what I would say there.
Yeah. And I mean, we have a podcast, Rock the Podcast, so we get a lot of bad pitches. We get a lot of spray and pray, and we'll actually screenshot them, not to be mean, but just for a teachable moment, and put them in our internal Slack channel. So we're not like publicly posting and shaming anyone, but we will show our team and be like, cool, this was not an effective pitch. Here's what it felt like as a host to get this pitch. Here's what it made me feel. I felt like they hadn't researched the show. They didn't care about what the audience wanted, and they just wanted to sell their book. Like, that's the type of thing. So giving them the perspective from a host of like, it does not feel good when I get a pitch like this, and this is why it's a waste of time. So it's really important to customize pitches to the show. And it's really important to have someone representing you who understands the strategy behind relationship building with hosts. So if it's a host we've never reached out to before, it's really important that the agent draws a line and shows they understand the show and the target audience and the promise to the audience, and then can really succinctly explain why the client fulfills that promise. And if you have those aspects in the first few sentences, so you don't make them take a bunch of time to read through something they're not interested in, then you have them. Because if they're like, oh, wow, you know, I do want an expert in this, that's a good fit for my audience. But if they're like, I don't want to do an episode on this, they don't have to read the person's entire bio before knowing whether they want that. So that's what I would say, being really strategic in that way. And then our agents, we really serve hosts too. You know, our host clients, they don't pay us, but they are our clients as much as our guest expert clients are. And our team is constantly reaching out to hosts, getting on the phone with them, talking to them about their show, the demographics of their show, what types of guests and topics that they want, and then tailoring the clients that they're sending over based on the client's goals and what they want from the show, and the host goals and what expertise they want. So that's a really helpful way to do it with real relationships and connections.
So here's something that I'm curious about, and I've been asked this by some of my clients who are at the 7-figure level. You know, there's this idea that if you're at the 7 or 8 figure level, that you shouldn't be pitching yourself, that you should have someone advocating for you. What do you say about that? Is that true or is that untrue, or do you have a mixed answer? I'd be curious about your point of view.
I think that's true. Just from a positioning aspect, absolutely. It's different if it's like your friend's show. Like, I would pitch myself to someone in our mastermind who's like, oh, I'm doing episodes on this. I'd be like, oh, actually, I can talk about one of those topics. And they're like, great. That's the furthest I would go with pitching myself. I do think that there's a positioning issue. If you're like on the ground hustling, pitching yourself, I don't think it represents you as well as having someone else representing you, obviously, who's doing a great job and understands your messaging and relationship building. But yeah, I would agree. And I think even at the 6-figure level, it's good to establish that positioning of being a CEO and like, what are CEO tasks and what are something that I should outsource to an expert.
I see. Excellent. I love that. So what would you say to a business owner that's wanting to test out podcast guesting and not go all in?
I don't even do it. Like, it's not even worth it. You'll just waste the time that you do spend on it. Don't dilute yourself in that way. I think it's really important to be focused and to figure out the strategies that you're doing and go all in on them rather than dabbling in a bunch of different strategies, because you won't get results. So if you're like, I'm going to do a few and see how it goes, unless it's like fun for you and you just want to do a few because you'll enjoy it and get something out of the experience, then sure. But it's not worth your time from an ROI standpoint to do it that way. Either go all in or just focus somewhere else.
It kind of reminds me, and I don't remember whose quote this is but how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're going to dabble and decide and not have discipline and dilute your focus, chances are that the results that you're seeking in your business will be absent of discipline, will be diluted, will be disappointing. So it kind of gets back to a mindset around what's going to be your best way of showing up. And that brings me to another question, is that there are some people, like I work with a lot of speakers, experts, and authors who are really good at speaking, but their genius may not rely or live within being tech geniuses, or knowing how to operate the dashboard at Facebook, or knowing how to deal with Facebook when they shut you down and you have to figure out a way to get back on. So what do you say about the people who love to speak, but really perhaps are deficient, another D word, deficient about technology and gadgets and things of that sort? What would you say to them?
I would say outsource everything and stay in your zone of genius. I think that's really important, The Big Leap. I really like that book, and that was the thing I got out of that, is really staying in your zone of genius. And anything that is outside your zone of genius, especially if it's in like your zone of incompetence and you're bad at it and it messes with your energy because it makes you feel bad or feel frustrated, get it off your plate. Like, get it off your plate. If you can stay in your lane and the stuff that lights you up, that generates a lot of revenue and profit for your business, outsource everything else.
I love that. I love that. So since it's December of 2020 and people are in planning mode about what they're going to achieve, I just should sort of segue. In February of this year, a group of really great gal pals of mine got together in Los Angeles at the Oprah Winfrey 2020 Vision event.
Cool.
And it was an amazing day of visioning what 2020 was going to be all about. And the day after we flew home, the world shut down, and whatever visions we had need to take on new shape. And just the other day, we got together by Zoom to talk about what we had accomplished in spite of and because of what had happened that was beyond any of our control. So as we sit here today in December of 2020, Margy, what would you say to people who are visioning what 2021 can be for them? What would you suggest they consider as they imagine what their visibility could bring them in terms of big results in their bottom line and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I would dream big and I would just focus on when I'm visioning, I like to focus on feeling too, because you could focus on like, I'm speaking, I'm having an impact, I feel fulfilled. And then if your plans change and the way that you were going to do that, maybe it was speaking in person changes and now it's going to be virtual, you can still achieve that end vision of how that feels and like who you're being at that point. So I would tell them to go big and dream big, and don't be afraid to set a vision and a goal that you then maybe have to change or have to pivot, because the biggest thing, it's not really just the vision, but it's the action. And I think some people are a little too vision heavy, and like, I get it. I love vision. I love strategy, but you really have to get out there and start doing. And then your vision is going to evolve. So I would say set something that lights you up and feels exciting to you, and then focus on the doing and the implementation and the process day to day, rather than just being obsessed with a result.
Brilliant answer. I thought of another question. Two more questions I wanted to ask about the interview connections engagement that one might elect to invest into to have the benefit of your team on their side. And one is, can you elaborate a little bit more about how it's far more than just getting booked? That I've participated in some of your trainings, and so I know that you do some networking among and between your clients, that you coach them in certain ways. Can you elaborate about how you go above and beyond the 48 or more bookings per year during an annual contract?
Yeah, so we have a container of services, and yes, we have the 48 guaranteed bookings on, shows that are the right shows for that person. But it's a lot more than guaranteed bookings, because we found, and the benefit of doing this for almost 8 years, is we've really been able to see which clients are more successful and what, strategic things lead to someone having a great experience versus someone having a so-so experience. So we've built that into our service. So we have a client community, which actually is really a COVID thing. Like, I really realized when COVID hit the need for community. And that's when we started doing twice a week Zoom calls for our clients and created our client Facebook group. And then we have trainings in the Facebook group every week. And it also gives clients the opportunity to promote, like if they have a launch or a book, they can promote in that group to each other. And it's a group of, almost 200 successful entrepreneurs. So my goal with the client community is for people to see an ROI from their investment with us before they even go on a show, because the client community and those connections are so valuable. So we have those community aspects. And then there's also a coaching piece, because it's more than just the interview, right? You need the strategies before, during, and after to actually monetize that appearance. And like we were talking about before, you can have this vision of how it's going to look, but once you're on the court, a few months into doing and implementing, we want to look at what you're doing and see if we want to pivot. And we couldn't have figured that out until you got on the court and started doing some things. So that's why the ongoing strategy is helpful. And we actually have someone on our team. All she does is client success. Her only job is to support the clients and be a cheerleader for them and hop on the phone with them every month and strategize. How were your interviews last month? What do we want more of? She listens to interviews. She gives them feedback on their call to action, on their storytelling, so that we're making sure we're auditing results and giving coaching so that clients get the most out of the interviews that we're booking them on.
Brilliant. That leads me to another little sidebar, which is I'm a member of Toastmasters and have really been working hard on eliminating filler words. So, from my vernacular. So when people listen to me, it's music to their ears as well as to the host. Does your person that's responsible for client success pay attention to that as well? And does she have a diplomatic way of saying, we really need to work on that?
If it's a big issue for someone, then yes, we would give them that feedback. For the most part, though, our focus is really on the quality of the content, because I found if someone is offering immense value, if they're telling great stories, if they use a few filler words, it's kind of not the end of the world, because an interview is so much less formal than like a keynote speech, right? It's a pretty casual conversation. And that's what makes it so powerful, because you feel like you're eavesdropping on a conversation between two entrepreneurs. So yes, if it was really distracting, of course we would. And we do talk to them about like headphones and microphone and all those basics of just making sure that you're professional. But it's more focused on the quality of the content and also the strategy, like making sure that they're showing up in the right way with hosts, that they're nurturing those relationships, that they're nurturing the leads that they send somewhere, that they're sending them somewhere that's valuable for them, and they're tracking that.
I love that. Now, I'm sure a lot of folks that are listening to or watching today are wondering, wow, Margy is amazing. The success she's achieved is remarkable. The expertise she has is well demonstrated, and they might be putting under their wish list for holiday or Santa, gosh, I want to commit to a year-long commitment with Interview Connections. Can you just throw out a ballpark figure of what someone would wisely invest in order to be able to get behind the velvet rope and be a client of yours?
Yeah, so our current pricing, our annual program is $15,500. We have a lot of people break that down into 12 monthly payments. It comes out to about like 12 or 1,300. Those prices are going up. Actually, those are our 2020 prices, so they will be going up after this month. But a good place too is to get, I'm not sure when this is airing or if this is live, but we have our boot camp, our 2-day boot camp next week. And that's going to be real, that we've never done that before. We've never done this much of an intensive where Jess and I are live for so long and spending so much time with everyone. So that's a good place if you're really on the fence about an investment like this and like what the ROI would look like for your business, whether it's a good fit. It's a really good idea to get into that boot camp because we want it to be a win-win. We want to make sure if you're investing in podcast guesting that you have clarity on it being a great strategy for you in 2021.
So if they were interested in that, I'm guessing that if they went to interviewconnections.com/group, they could join the group, and that's where there would be information about the boot camp. Yes?
Yep. If you join the group and answer the member questions, you'll see, and you can also register for the boot camp at interviewconnections.com/podcast-guesting/bootcamp.
Boot camp is one word?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it truly is a boot camp. This is going to be December 14th and 15th, Monday and Tuesday from 10 to 6. Jess and I are going to be doing 5 live sessions a day. In between, we're going to have exercises for implementation for everyone to do. So we're going to be spending a lot of time together.
Well, and this comes back to something we talked about earlier in the call, which is when you have an active, structured, engaged Facebook community, you have a ready audience of clients who are sitting at the feet of your wisdom, and they're waiting for that perfect time when the trigger needs to be pulled, that they're ready to jump in. And that's why one of the things I tell all of my clients is, where is your private Facebook group, and when are you inviting people to join, and what are you doing to deliver value there? Because of all the strategies that I've tried over the last 10 years or so of my business, nothing has been more robust or reliable than pouring on the value in a group that can be so transformational for people. And I should point out that this boot camp that you're doing is free of charge. It is a generous pouring on of expertise and value so that people can actually get things done. And I'm imagining that when people actually create their media one sheet and make their bio better and start thinking about their interview topics and what they could bring to a conversation, doesn't that ignite some enthusiasm in their body and some energy about, like, what else can I do, and how could this be happening faster, and how could I put some fire on the flame, and that sort of thing? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The energy in the group is so cool. People get so excited. And once you get in action and we're coaching you through, like you said, the topics and questions, we'll create your call to action with you and you have all this stuff. It is exciting because you're like, wow, I can do this. I can get started. And I love the Facebook community too, because it's like, everyone in the group is so supportive. It's so cool to have people watching our videos, responding, sharing their own experience, sharing their own goals, and to see them connecting with each other and, becoming friends and taking it outside of the group and scheduling calls and cheering each other on. It's got really good energy.
Well, I love that. And I guess it also brings to mind something that I've really come to know and appreciate, which is none of us succeeds alone. And during this COVID-19, where many people have been socially distant and they've been isolated in their homes, there's only so much alone time any one of us can tolerate. And when you're alone, your demons can get to you. When you're with others who are of like mind, who are thinking bigger and aiming higher and intending to make a bigger difference, that shifts your personal energy as well. And you're no longer comfortable dabbling or being absent of discipline or diluting your effort. You want to be all in, dive right in and make some magic happen. And so I really compliment you and Jess on this beautiful boot camp that you were leading in a very short time. Mm-hmm. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
No, I think this was great. Is there anything else that you want to know that wasn't one of the questions?
Well, let me just look here and see. I want to ask kind of an obvious question that I don't know if people have asked you before, but I'm just looking at you and it looks as though you are a young person. Okay? A young person who has accomplished magnificent things in a very short period of time. What would you say to people who are saying, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too thin, I'm too fat, I don't look good on camera, my voice is, people that argue for their limitations? What would you say to people that argue for their limitations and still, I guess that would be my question. What would you say as a parting salvo to people that are saying, I'm stuck in the getting ready to get ready club, and I think I'll overstay my welcome there for some crazy reason that has no validity? What would you say to that person?
I would just say, like, everyone has that. Everyone has voices that say they're too much of this or not enough of this, like at every level. I mean, we're in groups with incredible 8-figure and beyond entrepreneurs, and it's new level, new devil. It's like we've still got those stories at each new level that are holding us back in different ways. And then we figure out how to break through at each level. And that's the game, right? That's what's fun. So I would really say what you said of get in a great community, get out of your head, because you are just going to spin in circles if you're just like thinking about this in your own head or talking to people who are similarly negative. You're not going to get anywhere. So get in a community of positive people who are doing things, who are inspiring you. And just by being in that energy, it will rub off on you. And then I would also say action. Like, the longer that you put off getting started, the harder it will get. It's like when something makes us really anxious, the longer we avoid it, the scarier it gets, until it goes from like a mild anxiety to like people can get really, really afraid of something minor because they've avoided it enough, and the fear grows and grows and grows. So you got to tip that balance and really be like 90% action, 10% thinking, and just go and just sprint. And the busier you are, the more you're in action, and the more you're in communities with other people who are doing the same thing, you'll transform, and you will leave those stories behind and that tiny world that you created for yourself behind.
Amen to that. Well, Margy Feldhuhn, what a pleasure to get to talk with you, with all of my community voyeuring in to see the benefit of podcast guesting and growing a business and believing in it in such a way that we are all in at hello to welcome the results. And I guess that would be one more final question I want to ask. I have had the benefit of listening into many of your live calls and trainings, and I have heard the amazing success stories that people are reporting. But if you could share perhaps the most recent or compelling success story that a client achieved as a result of podcast guesting, that might be a really good way to put a red bow on this conversation.
Yeah, so our client, Kristen Bowen, and this is interesting because we had this story that this is really for service-based entrepreneurs, but she is actually a product-based entrepreneur. She's very cool. She sells magnesium supplements, and we're like now all addicted to her products, of course. Like, our houses are just full of these incredible magnesium products, which I highly recommend. But she came in and she blew it up. Like, in just 4 interviews in, she had made over $15,000 in revenue from those interviews, which was incredible to us because she's not even that service-based entrepreneur that it's really, a layup for. But because she had such great content, because she was truly committed to giving and serving and teaching, and she went all in on the strategy, she had incredible results. And the reason this story is in my mind is because I just heard a quote that she said, and it blew me away. And this like epitomizes what will make you successful on podcasts, no matter what your business is. She said, I treat every interview I do on a podcast as if the host paid me $10,000 to speak, to be there. That like blew my mind. And when you hear that, it's not surprising that she's getting results that are so incredible, even being a product-based entrepreneur. So that's a story that stuck in my mind. And our clients are like seriously so inspiring. And it's really cool to see what they're accomplishing using this strategy and how they're really making it their own.
Well, I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the folks at Interview Connections are world-class in every way. Everyone who follows my work knows that I believe in podcast guesting as a powerful way to raise your voice, make your impact, and make money every step of the way. While many of the folks in my community are taking a do-it-yourself approach and learning how to do it under their own power because for whatever reason they have not yet made the leap to making a $15,000 commitment to Interview Connections, I believe that it's just a matter of time before many of them will qualify and be jumping into the pool. So I expect, Margy, that you and I will be colleagues and collaborators for many years to come, and I look forward to that. And I just compliment you on a brilliant business that you've launched and grown and the great leadership that you're demonstrating as you support your clients to raise their voice, make their impact, and make money in all the ways that they can. So thank you so much for being here. What a pleasure. I can't wait to share this out with everyone I know, and I know that people will get huge value. So thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you. I think I've stopped it. Let me see.